Hi, and welcome to Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, and I invite you to join me as we explore the stories behind leaders in the hospitality industry and beyond. Say Grace is a place to reflect, connect, and savor thoughtful narratives. Everyone has a seat at our table, so pull up a chair and let's discover the transformative power of hospitality together. Hi there, welcome to Say Grace. I am absolutely fanboying, geeking out, dorking for my next guest, who I've had the pleasure of interviewing on a stage in Charleston, who was kind enough to write an endorsement of my book, Say Grace. I could read on and on, but Danny Meyer is, I would say, the most prolific restaurateur in America. He wrote the absolutely transformational book, Setting the Table, in 2005, that, in my opinion, gave us all language for hospitality. He's won 28, his restaurants have won 28 James Beard Awards. He's the only non-culinarian to win the Julia Child Award. Am I getting that right?
So far.
Welcome, Danny.
Yeah, it's so good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First off, I just dovetailing on what I just said, thank you for giving us all a language, because I remember it was either 05 or 06. I thought it was 05, but someone said it was 06 when Setting the Table came out. I had eaten at Gramercy 10 times at that point, and every word that I read in that book was this head shaking. That's the way I feel, but I didn't have a language. And you articulated it so well. Was that a long process for you, or did that just come naturally?
No, it was first of all, thank you. It was a long process, and it was 2006. And I've been working for the last 2.5 years on a new book, which this is how long it takes, which will hopefully come out on the 20-year anniversary of Setting the Table.
Oh, wow.
And it won't be a sequel to Setting the Table, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, sure.
But I'll tell you, it was a very, very long process, and I really appreciate what you just said, because unlike so many books where you learn things, like facts, Setting the Table doesn't really teach someone like you anything you didn't already know, but it does provide a way to say it, get it out of your heart, and therefore teach it. Right. And it takes having language to teach other people. And that's really what I wanted to do. And it kind of boggles my mind how many people have said that. It was never my goal. My goal in the very, very first place, for at least 3 years before I wrote Setting the Table, was that people on our team saw that we were growing. We went from one restaurant, Union Square Cafe, which was the only restaurant we had for the first 10 years.
Right.
And then Gramercy Tavern. And then 4 years after that, 11 Madison Park and Tabla. And then Shake Shack and Blue Smoke and the Modern. Right. So more and more. But people on our team were saying, Danny, we don't see you every minute of every day like we once did, because you're always somewhere else.
Right. I've been there.
You got to tell us how we should be making choices. We have service manuals to tell us literally how to set the table, but how should we be thinking about how to handle situations and do things? And I kept going, yeah, I don't have time. And then all of a sudden, all these like publishers and agents and editors who would dine at Union Square Cafe for lunch, like almost in unison, came out of the woodwork saying, we've got this idea. You need to write a business book about how you do business, because your restaurants just feel different. Right. And I kind of went, I don't have time. Who cares how we do things? You know, I went through all that stuff.
A lot of us do.
All shucks kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the light bulb went off, and I said, if I could actually get paid in advance to do what my team has been telling me to do anyway, and kind of turn what they wanted to be a manual into a book, why not? So I went for it. Then a quick funny story. About a week and a half after the editor bought the proposal that I sent, I get called into the publisher's office, they had just let go my editor. It was a wonderful woman.
Oh, wow.
And so I don't have an editor, and the publisher sits me across from him at a table. I swear to God, his seat was 4 inches taller than mine.
Right.
And he shoves my proposal across the table, slides it across the table, and he said, "We bought this?" And I went, "Yeah." And I didn't know if they could, break the contract. I didn't know what was what. And he said, "I'll tell you right now, that proposal is never going to work." And, my heart sunk. And he proceeds to say, "We are the most successful publisher of business books in the history of publishing. And there's exactly 3 kinds of books that work, and you're none of them. There's the celebrity biography. Right. No one knows who you are. Number 2, there's the fabulist who comes up with a big business idea, change is hard, and writes a book, Who Moved My Cheese?"
Right. Yeah.
We do that
Great
guy.
book.
And then there's the business expert who studies businesses across the gamut, draws conclusions. We have Jim Collins. He wrote Good to Great, Built to Last. You're none of those things. So I guess I finally said, so now what? And he said, "Well, we already bought your book." So my heart rose a couple inches.
Right.
He said, "But you're going to have to do it differently. You're going to have to start off by writing a little bit of a memoir, because no one knows who in the world you are. Got to show us who you are, where you came from, what motivates you. And then, if you have one advantage at all, it's that unlike GE, and one of our authors is Jack Welch, where no one knows what GE does, everyone in the world has either worked in a restaurant or dined in a restaurant. So now that we know who you are, tell us a bunch of restaurant stories and show us how you dealt with them." And I think that could have value. So that's what I did. I never, ever would have wanted to put all that personal stuff in there. So that's all I was trying to do, was to write something for my own team. And it just makes me feel so grateful that the book, as you just said, has touched people's hearts because they already had this stuff in their heart, but nobody valued it before, or nobody told them how to give that to other people.
My company would not be my company today without that book. And I mean that. In 2014, I had 4 restaurants in Charleston, and they were working. And I, I have a past, addiction, homelessness, which is not for this day, but imposter syndrome. I really was like, I can't believe this is working. And I attended Hospitality Quotient. And because I was like, I want to know how you do this, because I don't know how to do this. And I started doing leadership retreats, getting everybody in a room, saying, okay, what are our emotional qualities? What are those things? And so thank you from the bottom of my heart, because we have 2,100 employees now that know this language. And
that's incredible.
It is, I talk about grateful. And I bet I've eaten at Gramercy Tavern 60 times. And Mike, I got engaged there. So what you create, the ripple effect of do you ever have a sense of that? I mean, I can walk.
I don't think any of us, I don't think you have a full sense of it, that every single day, restaurateurs talk about how many covers did you do tonight?
Yeah.
How many memories did you create tonight? That's really what we should be talking about. And we will never fully know.
Right.
We don't know how many people broke up in our restaurants. We don't know how many people got engaged in our restaurants. Don't know how many deals were done. Don't know how many siblings worked lifelong issues out at our restaurants. But that's what we exist for. We exist to be a public place for people to do life. And if we can have someone for 2 hours or 2.5 hours and sprinkle some magic dust, and whatever they brought in somehow got better by the time they leave,
right,
we will have done our job. And I do think one thing we can see very, very clearly, all of us, I'm sure you do as well, is that restaurants can be community builders. They're
Amen.
Placemakers. Yeah. And I love when we open a restaurant in a place maybe that was never a restaurant before. and all of a sudden that place lifts up all boats in its own community.
Right.
Gives people a chance to see their city in a different light. You know, we opened a restaurant just a couple months ago called The View.
Times Square.
And it's on the 46th and 7th floor of the Marriott Marquis, smack dab in the middle of Times Square. It was opened in 1985, closed for many years. It was basically a buffet restaurant for tourists.
Right.
And the Marriott Marquis asked us if we would consider giving it a new life. And I mean, that's the most insane idea in the world for me at this point in my career to open a revolving restaurant. and we took it on, and we took it on because we said, well, whoever wrote the rule that should only be for tourists?
Right.
Love tourists, but why can't we give that gift to New Yorkers to see their city in a different way? New Yorkers go to theater. I know that many New Yorkers wouldn't otherwise go smack dab the 50-yard line of Times Square.
Right.
I know that many New Yorkers would not otherwise go to the Marriott Marquis unless they had to go there for, you know, an award ceremony or a gala. Like you don't stay at a hotel in your own town.
Right.
But I think we've done it. I think we're doing it. And it's so many people have said, you gave me a chance to feel like a visitor in my own town. That was a gift.
That's awesome.
And then if the food's great on top of that. So I like placemaking, and that we can see.
Will Danny Meyer continue to open new restaurants?
I think I don't really have a choice.
Right. Okay.
You know, I sort of fired myself as CEO about 2.5 years ago.
I've met Chip. He's great.
Chip is remarkable. And we had been working together at that point for almost 4 years anyway. He was our president and chief operating officer. What this has given me license to do, I can't tell you how many people incorrectly congratulated me on my retirement or said, I mean, I had a couple people say, are you okay? Did you get pushed? You know, or, you know, how is life now that you've stepped away or stepped down? And I don't think they completely get it.
Right.
So I never heard the expression executive chairman before. All it means is you're chairman, but you get paid.
Right.
So if I'm getting paid, I'm coming into work every day.
Every day.
And I do know what the word founder means, and you never stop caring when you're the founder. So what this has given me the opportunity to do, because Chip is so good at the stuff he's good at, is I'm spending way more of my time on things that are uniquely up my alley, but fewer things than I've ever done, just more deeply. And I'm spending a heck of a lot less time on making the trains run on time.
Right.
Which is not necessarily my greatest forte. So I always describe it as being the 3 C's: creativity, culinary, and culture. And if I can go to work every day and make those 3 things a little bit better, and the creativity I get a lot of satisfaction, not only in opening new restaurants, which we will continue to do, but even within each restaurant, as you know.
Yes.
These are living, breathing
Yes.
entities. It's not like, you know, the picture on the wall that once it's in the frame, it's not changing.
Right.
It involves creativity every day to say, proud of what we did yesterday, but what could we do even better today?
You just gave me a 5-year goal. Executive chairman. Work on the stuff that, you know.
It's great, and I would just say make sure you know that it's the antithesis of retirement. I'm probably working more hours than ever and having maybe twice as much fun.
That's you know, you've done a lot of things other than fine dining. Of course, we all know the story of Shake Shack, but you started a fund, Enlightened Hospitality Investments. What was the motivation or the inspiration behind that? Because that Danny Meyer, the investor, that's a bit of a different turn from Danny Meyer, the restaurateur.
Yeah, and Daily Provisions as well is another
the
one,
cruller.
which is growing.
Oh
nicely.
my God, that
Cruller's
thing.
yummy. Egg sandwich is damn good. So the impetus of the fund was as simple as this. I was having dinner one night with one of my old college roommates who had been an investment banker for several years, or maybe like over 30 years, actually. And kind of had enough of it. And he had noticed that kind of episodically I had been investing in various businesses over time. Open Table, I was a seed investor in that. A couple of companies maybe you've not heard of, one called Olo, which is online ordering. It's actually the white label plumbing system for most restaurant apps. So if you're using your phone and you want to order food for pickup or delivery, before it gets to the restaurant or before it gets to the delivery company, it went through Olo. They made that all happen. So that's a company. Another one was called Today Tix, which gave people the opportunity to buy Broadway tickets at a moment's notice without having to stand in line. So long story short, Mark Levitt, who is my roommate, noticed that, and he said, I see that you like making these kind of early stage investments, and it seems like you're betting both on people and on culture, just like you do when you hire somebody. What if we did that intentionally in an organized way and brought together a team of people, raised money from limited partners, and then had a thesis, which is that culture wins the day, good ideas win the day, and we can focus on what you, Danny, call Enlightened Hospitality. We call the fund Enlightened Hospitality Investments. It's been fun. I will say that the unexpected benefit, I think we've made something like close to 25 investments right now. The unexpected benefit is how much learning we get to do. It's a fantastic ecosystem. So when we invest in any business, whether it's about half of them are in the technology space,
right?
Most of those being technology that can be used in restaurants. We have had a couple restaurant companies themselves, but not too many. We've had some CPG products like Bonza, which is a chickpea pasta, a company called Overnight Oats. We have one business that just skyrocketed during the pandemic and has kept its strength called Goldbelly, where people can order.
I ordered many times during the pandemic.
And people are still ordering. So iconic foods from around the country. Ice cream business called Salt and Straw. From each one of these businesses, they're dealing, even if they're, sorry, I'm a little bit off on a tangent.
You're good.
I'm thinking about a couple that have nothing to do with food, but everything to do with a hospitality culture, one of which we met because they took our hospitality quotient classes called Clear. You see those in the airport. And they care deeply about the customer experience and the employee experience. Another one that has nothing to do with food whatsoever is Studs, an ear piercing company. But they bring hospitality to that experience.
Right.
I have no experience myself.
Right.
But I gather that if I had a pierced ear, I would rather have it be done by someone who was on my side.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Madison Reed, a hair coloring company. So while most of them connect to food, it's important for us to convey that the word hospitality doesn't mean hotels and restaurants. It means a way of treating people, a way of making people feel.
Yeah.
So every one of these companies, no matter what business they're in, has pretty much the same set of business challenges that we all have.
Right.
As long as you have employees, you got a certain set of challenges. As long as you have competitors, you have a certain set of challenges. As long as you have customers, we call them guests, you have a certain set of challenges. Marketing, on and on and on. Supply chain, there's not one of them that's not wondering what would be the impact of tariffs if they were to stick, hold, get bigger, worse, whatever. So what's great is that we have been able to create a community of businesses. We're like-hearted companies because they all care about how they make people feel. That's our baseline. But we're like-hearted businesses get to share insights with one another on how to make their businesses better. It's just been an unexpected joy. The other thing I have to say, the team we have at EHI are mostly, they're all younger than I am. Many of them much younger than I am, but really, sharp as a tack people. And we get together as a whole group twice a week, actually, every week, and just share ideas. And so it's been almost for me like a graduate class.
Okay.
our restaurants get better because we see technology sooner than we otherwise would have.
Gramercy Tavern just celebrated 30 years. It was big in all the news. A lot of operators, we're all talking about how the industry has changed so much. Certainly post-COVID, the labor challenges we've all experienced. 30-year-old restaurant, how has the industry changed from when you opened?
Well, can we talk about a 40-year-old restaurant, Union Square Cafe?
Yeah, sure.
Can we talk about a 20-year-old restaurant, the Modern?
Yeah, I love the Modern.
Yeah, I do too. I love them all, and I think that's part of the fun of. Actually, someone once asked me, or more than once asked me, what's your favorite restaurant? And I said they're a lot like my kids. Number one, even if I had one, I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
No, but the real thing is it's whichever one is giving me the least amount of problems that week.
That's honest.
That is honest.
Yeah.
You know, just take 20 years. We don't even have to take 30 like Gramercy or 40 like Union Square. I was thinking about this a lot as I started writing this next book I've been working on. What's happened in the last 20 years? Well, 20 years ago, we didn't have iPhones.
I know.
We had Blackberries. That's kind of crazy.
It's kind of crazy.
20 years ago, I had never closed a restaurant because I thought that was failure.
Yeah.
20 years ago, we hadn't experienced the Great Recession. 20 years ago, we had one Shake Shack, not almost 600 around the world. 20 years ago, we had certainly not gone through the pandemic and learned all of those lessons and been tested as an industry, as a business, in every possible way. We hadn't had Me Too. We hadn't had George Floyd's murder.
Right.
And so I just think that so much has changed. So much has changed dramatically. And I think that, you know, keeping a business not alive, but thriving and improving, because that's our goal. Where it's like, if you're not improving, just hang them up. It's like a shark that tries to, you know, survive. Shark has to swim forward or it dies.
Right.
So I think businesses have to do the same thing. And so the amount of learning we've had to do, pivoting we've had to do, it's a lot more like a sailing regatta than anything else. You know where you're trying to get. But if you, for a minute, think there's a straight line between point A and B, you're crazy. It's a zigzag and a back and forth. And I just think so much of this is about, you know, staying power and constantly staying vigilant that we're going to honor the work we did yesterday and figure out how we can do it a little bit better today. And I've never woken up one day in my life saying there's not something we could have done a little bit better.
Right. What's the thing you're most proud of?
I think it gets back to what we were talking about earlier, which was it's not any one restaurant. Because you go into every restaurant, or I go into every restaurant, hoping that something that I think is going to resonate with people, you hope it does. And it to one degree or another, it does or it doesn't.
Right.
And then you make adjustments, so hopefully it does a little bit more. And I am very proud of that, and I'm proud of, more proud than anything, of the company I keep, the people who have worked in our organization, many of whom have left. Like, you got to spend some time with Randy Garuti, who I adore.
Will Gadero, of course.
Yeah, so, you know, our job is to, I've always said that when I feel sad when someone leaves, that means they must have been really good. And I have only one choice at this point, and that is to honor them by building on their shoulders and going even further somehow.
Right.
So I'm proud that we've been able to continue to restock the soup pot with fresh ingredients.
Yeah.
Make the soup tastier. I do think, though, just as candidly as possible, there's probably nothing I should be more proud of than the unexpected impact that setting the table has had on so many people, which you were saying at the very
Literally,
top of our
it changed
conversation.
my life.
And that makes me feel so proud. I don't know that you would say that about any one of our restaurants. You might like them. You might, maybe, you know, I've heard so many great stories. Oh, that's where I got engaged or whatever. That changed my life.
Yeah.
That's where I got this job that changed my life. But I do think that if setting the table speaks to you as a reader, whoever you are, and you do something with that, and then that ripples out to make other people's lives better, that's something I feel really grateful for.
That's awesome. What are you afraid of at this point in your life?
Not really motivated by fear.
Okay.
And I'm also not a very big worrier. I think I'd actually drive people on my team crazy because I'm what we call upsided. I see you're wearing glasses, and I don't know whether you're nearsighted, farsighted. I don't know what it is.
Right.
But if they made glasses for being upsided, it would probably be good for me to wear them because I only see what could go right.
That's amazing.
I don't tend to get along all that well with skeptics, the people who say it'll never work. And so when I say I drive my team crazy, I just see possibility almost everywhere I look. And maybe I should be afraid more often. Maybe I tell you one thing, I've learned that it's important for me to surround myself not with skeptics, but with people who can provide me with real data to say, all right, I hear your optimism. I love your dream, but just want to make sure you know that these 3 or 4 things actually could go wrong. I know you're only focused on what could possibly go right.
Right. Don't change. You inspire us all. I wanted to ask you. I know that you have a lovely family of Matt, Audrey. You have children, one of which started an ice cream business. Will they ever wander their way into Union Square hospitality?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt it.
So this won't be a generational family business?
I don't think so. We have 4, I would never say never, but we have 4 kids. The youngest one just got into medical school, so I don't think that's what he wants to do. One of them is a musician. One of them is a teacher. She's doing her master's right now. And then Hallie, who owns Cafe Pana, she is in the food business and she's doing great. But I think she really, really loves being her own boss. Okay. And she's worked so hard to, I don't own Cafe Pana. And yet so many people made the assumption early on that it must be one of our restaurants.
Right.
And I so respect that it's her thing. And I feel badly when people go up to her and say, your dad must have really helped you or whatever. And she's always incredibly gracious. She'll say, yeah, well, I grew up in that family and we cooked together and all this kind of stuff. But the greatest joy I get today is when people come up to me and ask me, is Hallie Meyer your daughter? As opposed to people going up to her and saying, is Danny Meyer your dad?
Right.
Because she's really doing a great job. I don't think that she would ever choose to step into Union Square Hospitality.
What's your hope for the industry? We've talked about how much it's changed. There's a lot of noise in the press, and it's harder to operate than ever before, and which is, given your perspective, it's true. Looking 5 years out, what's your hope for this industry?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure it's harder than ever. I think it's always been hard.
Yeah, right.
Seriously, who are we to say, was it harder in 1985? What was easier when I opened Union Square Cafe in 1985 was that if we placed an ad in the Village Voice print newspaper, stop right there, we would have lines around the block to get a waiter job.
Right.
That ain't happening anymore.
No.
None of that's happening. We're not,
None.
no print newspapers. 1985 people were smoking in restaurants.
Right.
That's all changed. But that didn't mean that we didn't have challenges. We had mob guys coming in and telling us who we could and couldn't have take our trash out, who we couldn't, who we couldn't buy our bread from. Seafood, dairy, that stuff's not happening anymore.
Right. Sure.
But that was challenging, especially as a first-time restaurateur. I didn't know what to make of that.
Right.
Fortunately, I was so stupid that I just ignored it.
Oh.
But look, I think those of us who are called to this industry are called because we obviously, like the people who are best in this industry are the people who are best at giving hugs. Because your customers and your employees want to get a hug. But guess what? That also means the people who are the best in this industry must need hugs.
Right.
Because every time you give one, you get one back.
That's right.
And my hope for this industry is that through thick and thin challenge, it's always going to be a new challenge du jour.
Yeah.
In our industry, is that we continue to attract more and more people who are in it for the right reason, which is to create places where people can do their best life's work. The people, you do this so well, the people who work for you and your company aren't just learning how to work in the restaurant business, they're learning about life and they're learning about accountability and responsibility to a team. They're learning about their own self-worth and their own ability to keep growing and learning and teaching. Right. These are really, really good things that our industry does. Oh, and did I mention making our communities better, creating community wealth?
Amen.
Did I mention, as we talked about earlier, creating places for people to do life? I mean, where else does that happen? Right. Maybe in the few town squares we still have, but that we are the town squares of our communities. So for our industry, I hope that if we continue to attract people to not only work in our industry, but open restaurants and other kind of eating establishments whose heart is squarely in the right place. Right. Here's why we do this. Then we get rid of some of the stuff that plagued us, in the 20-teens, all the Me Too stuff and not being inclusive in the way we hire people and treat people on our teams. That was a bad period for our industry.
It really was.
And those reckonings that we had, I think, were painful and crucial. And I just think there's no place for people who treat other people. Amen. How can you be in the hospitality business and treat people not just poorly, but in some cases inhumanely?
Right. So you also taught us, and Shake Shack raising money for Madison Park being a big one. You obviously have a charitable heart, and that's one of our pillars in our company. And of course, our mutual friend Mickey and I founded Ben's Friends for the industry, people struggling with addiction. Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry was one of the. What's a charitable cause right now that you're particularly passionate about? And maybe it's the same thing.
Well, I still care deeply about No Kid Hungry and Share Our Strength. That was at their event on stage last week, giving Hillary an award.
Oh, great.
Which was nice. And I care about, maybe because I'm getting older, but I care increasingly about supporting health institutions in various communities to make healthcare accessible for more people. I also care about education. I just gave one of the biggest gifts I've ever given to my alma mater, Trinity College in Hartford, which has a campus in Rome. And I spent a semester there, which changed my life as a junior. In fact, that semester, I think, continues to impact so much of what I do in the restaurant business. But when I learned that there's a whole lot of students who would love to do that, but they cannot afford an entire semester, and I learned that there was an opportunity to fund a 3-week program.
Oh, cool.
That can take place either in January, the month that the school's not in session, or during the summer when the school's not in session. So for me, the opportunity to pave the way for people to have a 3-week chunk where they're going to take a few classes and really immerse themselves in Rome, which is just about my favorite city in the
Yeah.
world. So you may not look at that as a philanthropy, but it's something that
Absolutely.
look. I think that philanthropy, the best philanthropy in the world, connects somehow emotionally to the people who want to participate in it.
Right.
Like either could be something that you wanted to overcome in your life, or it could be something that actually helped you overcome things in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
But you want others to have it better.
Yeah. I mean, I've opened a lot of restaurants. Ben's Friends is the thing I'm most proud of. To watch people come in addicted, broken, to see them a year later with light and hope in their eyes is like, there's just nothing. I mean, I'm 23 years sober and know that journey. You mentioned Rome, and this is like a question that's coming up, and two more, and then I know we need to wrap up. Maialino. One of my favorite restaurants. I'm a stepdad. My first Christmas trip to New York, my new wife and my stepdaughter, we stayed at Gramercy Park Hotel, and I took her. She had cacio e pepe for the first time, and I still have this picture of as you're at the host stand, that table in the window. She was messing with my hair. It's my favorite picture. Will we ever see Maialino again?
Oh boy.
I mean, I love it. You would come in. Jimmy Fallon was having breakfast all the time, and it just was this great neighborhood.
Yeah, and I cannot tell you how much I want to bring it back. Poor Maialino. I say poor Maialino. It's either the little piggy who could, because so Maialino closed when the Gramercy Park Hotel closed
Right.
at the pandemic. So I was at the last dinner there, which was March 19th. No, excuse me, March 13th, 2020. March 13th, 2020. And never reopened after that. The hotel subsequently got sold, and we're told that they have big plans, but their plans are not going to include Maialino. So meanwhile, Maialino opened, now I'm kind of going back in time, before the pandemic, we opened Maialino Mare,
Right.
so the little pig who could swim, in Washington, D.C. And that was in a hotel called the Thompson Hotel. COVID comes just a couple months later, and it closes.
Right.
Then we opened a pop-up version of Maialino in a hotel in New York City, where we also had a pizza restaurant called Marta.
Been there many
It
times.
was really good.
Yeah.
And we called it Maialino Vicino, so Maialino nearby, because it was only meant to be while we were waiting for the Gramercy Park Hotel to reopen.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, that hotel gets transformed into housing for asylum seekers. So no more Marta, no more Maialino. So now Maialino's been kicked out of 3 hotels. I'm starting to get the message that when it comes back, it should not be in a hotel.
Right.
And on the other hand, I'm completely getting the message that we need to give Maialino back to its people. Oh, and we will. We will absolutely do that.
I love that restaurant so much. Last question. So I wrote a book, again, that you endorsed, Say Grace, and I named the podcast Say Grace, and somebody said, well, it sounds religious. Are you worried? I said, well, in the South, on Sundays, you have Sunday supper, you hold hands, and usually grandma would choose who got to say grace. So that's what it was for me. So Say Grace is giving thanks. What are you thankful for?
Thankful for you. Don't laugh.
No.
No, I'm thankful for the example that you set for what we can be in our industry at our best. And yeah, it's like you lead with your heart in all that you do. And I'm very thankful for that. And thankful for my health, thankful to have family that I love, thankful to have a wife who's not only a great wife, but an amazing mother and grandmother. with another grandchild on the way any minute.
God bless.
Yep. So much to be thankful for.
Well, Danny, thank you for taking the time. Truly, you have impacted this industry at a level that will be measured for many years to come. And there's the African saying, Ubuntu, I am because we are. The Indigo Road is because you were and you are Union Square. So thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Sir Steve.
And we have a gift, because we want a gift. This is a Charleston company. This is a cast iron.
Oh, wow.
And it's got your name on it. So Smithy Ironware is the company. So I hope you'll.
Cool. Thank you.
I hope you'll. It's a little bit heavy for the subway ride, but we can send it to your office if you'd like.
No. I'm definitely taking this.
Okay.
This is great. Thank you.
So this was Say Grace. I'll be dorking out for the rest of the day. If you like what you heard, tell a friend. We're on all the major platforms. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. We hope you join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into the inspirational stories about the transformative power of hospitality.